Okay. Here we go. See if anyone's up tonight. Oh, I hear myself. That's annoying. All right. Let's turn that off. We'll turn some music on. We'll hang out and work on this map. Get this done so I can publish it. Can't have a fantasy book without a map. All right. Okay. Hope y'all are doing good if you're watching. Put this little thing on my face. Let's see my the bluified face. All right. Okay, so for those of you who are hopping in, here's a map. Right now, I'm just drawing like I just put some notes in here for where stuff's going to be later. I'll do all the lettering later, but right now I'm just drawing the land masses. And unfortunately, because this takes place on like an island, I got to draw a lot of coastline. And the way I draw coastline, if you look at this one, is like this. You draw a thick line, which I already drew. Then you draw the thin lines, and that indicates that it's water. This way you can do it pretty much in black and white, and it looks pretty good. This is the way like old Tolkien maps and stuff were drawn, so it should be fun. I actually do have a kind of prologue. I call it a prelude, I guess, which is that's whatever. Prelude to the whole series. Point is to establish a conflict. Let's get a little bit closer here so it's a little easier to draw this. So if you want to know what brush sizes I used a 12 pixel brush for the big parts of the coast and a 6 pixel brush for these little lines, and that's usually the size that probably the size I'll use for most of the other stuff will be 8. So a little bit thicker than this right here. And when I go around an island, I just kind of go out there like that. I'm going to turn around and go around these islands like that. And of course I can draw like a little bit in there if I want to. I'll probably do that just like that. That indicates more or less what I want out of this. Actually, I might let's see if I can get in really tight here. Now the first map I did entirely by hand, and this one, see, I like the Photoshop because I can, you can't make mistakes with a real pen. But with Photoshop, you definitely can just do it over again. That makes it a lot easier. Although with the pen, like, there's a different focus, because the focus is, you got to do it like really accurate the first time, or you got to do it really accurate the first time, or else it's not really going to work. Let's see what I can do here to really make this island look good. If I really wanted to, like, I could just erase the island, Kind of go past it like that. And then we can have the outer ones go around it. Like, actually, watch, I'll just get an eraser. I'll just erase this part right here. And so then the other ones can kind of go around it. So, erase this. Kind of hard to get it all like exactly looking really good, The beauty of being able to erase something as crisp as this is quite tempting. But I do appreciate doing actual inking with, ink. The real thing. You get a little bit different focus on it. You got to focus on the real, exactly what you're doing here. So one of the things we can do, like if there's an island in here, let's back up a step. So let's say there's a little channel island right here, which we can just draw a little one like this, which is really common in a bay. When you draw this little coastline part, just kind of go around it like that. And it looks really good. So yeah, looking pretty good so far. Looking pretty good. Hope y'all are having fun. This is just an impromptu thing because I'm like doing whatever. Have you done any battle maps, or should I add maps in between pages of text? I haven't done them. Could have done them for Needle Ash, like put some kind of battle maps. I kind of thought about doing it, but I haven't really done them before. So it would have been, what time is it out there? It's 11:22. I could have done a battle map, but it would have been something kind of weird, I felt like. So, like it's not my, it's like I don't have experience doing it, so. It could have been good. Like if you read like a Civil War novel, it's kind of cool to have. It's kind of cool to have that extra layer there of that. Anyway, let's put on some music here. If you guys want to hear the desktop audio, I'll just turn it down kind of low. Let's listen to some game soundtracks. I think that's what I'm going to do for the next Zool album. Is it's going to be more focused on impressionist music, kind of in the vein of what I've been doing, but just more kind of the raw emotion. Maybe slightly more classical than the first Zool album was. Yeah, I'm not happy with that line. So if I don't like the line, I can just redo it. Redo it. A little closer here. See what the heck I'm doing. I'm just doing this with a little Wacom tablet so that it's really easy and natural to do. It's more like a pen. I do appreciate working with tools that make me feel like I'm not using a computer. I'm completely happy with that line. It's easy. The number of people that have heard this soundtrack and haven't played Oblivion but have been like, this is great. It's always kind of interesting to me. Of course, this was written by, who wrote this? He got Me Too'd recently. Oh my god, I can't believe his name is escaping me. Jeremy Soule. I don't know if it's Soul or Soleil, but he got Me Too'd recently. Somebody was like, he was a creep when I slept with him. Therefore, he should never, ever work ever again. And at this point, I don't know what to say about all that. More important than ever to be a gentleman and act like magnets, probably. I'm not happy with that line. See, if this was on a real piece of paper, I'd be going like so carefully to make sure it was perfect. But you just get kind of used to being a little bit less precise. It's okay. Still looks like a real pen because of the brush I'm using, a hard round brush. So you get real close, it still looks like real pen ink, but it's not real at all. past this thing. Go out like that. Make sure I'm not going too close to the coast here. Let's see, that one's a little bit close. And we'll redo that line. Kind of got to be clever. And see, when we draw the second one, it's going to be over that island right there. I'm just going to start with one all the way around. This is so meticulous. That's why I like to just... It's like I gotta have something else going on, some music or something, because it's just such meticulous kind of work. Very meticulous when you're doing it in pen and ink as well. Like I find, you know, if it's the same thing if you're like drawing figures, the inking process can be so almost stressful because the amount of detail, especially if you're working with real paper and not just doing things digitally, which I totally understand why everyone wants to do things digitally now, because it's just, God, it's so much easier. I'm just gonna fix this little hiccup right here so it looks really good. Size, oh, no, I want the eraser to be 10. Let's go with 10. Yeah, I'm using an eraser. I'm not painting white because it makes it easier to go back and forth. There we go. Perfect. MO6. All right. Just and I do have people who rather like my maps. So I do want to take the time, and if I'm going to put out a fantasy novel, it's nice to, you know, it's nice to put out a map with it. How quietly you're talking when, hopefully you guys can hear me. I turn up my microphone a little bit. It's late, you know, it's a different energy level. Morrowind has a great soundtrack. Oblivion is way more emotional to me. Morrowind sounds like Gustav Holst so much. In fact, I think the main theme is just, it's basically Jupiter. It's one of the themes from Jupiter, almost note for note. You know, it's very much more cinematic, I think, Morrowind is. Whereas, just Oblivion gave me such a bigger feeling of, like, stepping out into a wide world of danger than either of the other two games. I not to say anything bad against Morrowind, because I really like Morrowind as well. And I do like Skyrim as well, too. I had lots of fun playing Skyrim, especially playing all the different mods. There were so many fun mods for Skyrim. Went back and played Morrowind, like with the graphic enhancer mod. Put a little island. Sometimes I like to just put a little island like that. If I have like a lot of space here, which I kind of do. Just put a little island that goes around like that. It's okay to make mistakes, guys. And because this is kind of replicating a pen and ink situation, I really shouldn't be too concerned about like micro details. It's just kind of my personality tends to focus on them a little bit. Like if something doesn't look right, I want to redo it. Yeah. What am I drawing on? This is, I mean, if you want to know the program I'm using, it's Photoshop. You know, I can shrink the window down. I'm using like a really huge window. So, you know, it's Photoshop. Here's all the tools and everything. But I like to draw in a big window. So you're not seeing the whole thing, you're just seeing the thing I'm actively drawing, which is kind of what I want right now. You don't have to worry about all those tools, get those out of the way, and just look at the paper. The other thing about drawing on Photoshop is like, normally you can't zoom in this much, but you can't, you know, to draw on paper. But because I'm using like a little tablet, you know, a little Wacom tablet to actually draw this stuff, you kind of have to be accurate, because the tablet's very accurate. Like the Wacom tablets are very good. you know, the competitor tablets are okay, but man, they just really have not caught up to where Wacom tablets actually are. Because it's so small, and because you're kind of working, you know, if I want to work towards the bottom of the page, my hand kind of comes off it, and I don't like to put it up on the table. I like to really have it in my lap. You know, it's just, you kind of got to zoom in to get it right. I should get a bigger one, you know. I should get like the bigger Intuos one. I found like I don't really need the ones at the screen. The ones at the screen are cool. It's a cool idea. Like you're getting closer to paper, which I really appreciate. However, it's not ever the same. So I'm okay with looking at the computer screen and just having this sort of pin touch effect going on here. I'm okay looking at the computer screen and not at my hand, because normally you're looking down at your hand to do the stuff. Yeah, Skyrim's great. Skyrim was a little too casual, yeah. I never bought Fallout 4, full confession. I once I saw the dialogue wheel, I was like, I'm not buying that game. And I was saying, you know what? It's not worth $60 to me, is what I said. And I still haven't bought it, because I guess it's never been cheap enough to where I felt like it was worth it. Like, I feel like if it was $5, it'd probably be worth it to me to play Fallout 4, because I like the other Fallout games that Bethesda did. But at the same time, you know, I realized a while back that the limited resource is actually not money. It's actually time. Time is your actual limited resource. So if you're going to be spending a bunch of hours playing a game that sucks, it doesn't matter how cheap it is, you know? The only time I think price matters on games is if they're a short experience. You know, if it's like a 5-hour experience and it's like you can get a deal on that 5-hour experience, that's okay to me. But if it's like a 60-hour, 100-hour behemoth, it kind of doesn't really matter like how cheap the game is if it's not a good game to play. And Fallout 4, I mean, it could be great. It didn't look great to me, and it didn't look like a Fallout game that I was going to have fun with, so I didn't buy it yet. Oh my gosh, guys, I've drawn the first line all the way around this giant island. Why did I have to set this on an island where I have to draw this much coast? I don't know what I was thinking. I'm going to be here. It's going to take so long to draw this map. Ugh. It's going to be great, though. People love the maps. It looks pretty good, you know. If you want to get islands right, by the way, you got to look at like Scotland and like the coast of Norway, and you'll kind of see the way coasts break up. So, you know, if I wanted to get super technical, like I'll probably name this island. I haven't thought of a name, but like you'd name all the islands. And this, though, I'm just gonna leave most of them blank because they don't matter. What matters is there's a city here, and like I even have the notes. Where's the? No, that's not it. Oh, great! I drew in the notes file. There, let's. Yeah, I drew some extra islands. I can just put those back in. Yeah. Here's the place notes. Yeah. See, just simply, okay, there's gonna be a river here, and just like put some notes of where I wanted stuff. If you want to see how I started, like I started with like just some really big, broad stuff. Like, where do I want this island on the map? You know, where do I want the coastline to be? And then I just slowly redrew it until I ended up with something that was more like what I actually wanted. So, there you go. This is how you draw a map. I've done a couple videos on this stuff. Do you put paper over the tablet? No, I don't. I just use the tablet. I haven't thought about that. That's a good idea. You didn't miss anything. I put in 4 hours and never touched it again. Is a map for a sci-fi novel a good idea if it takes place in an interesting otherworldly land? Totally. Any lore you can reveal for this map yet? Yeah, this is a country called I think Veriland, and it's basically this takes place in my universe, but just far in the future from where I originally started, and it actually does link up with the Eternal Dream sequence, but it's a completely different style of story. This will be like a 12-volume series of, again, short books about 35 to 50,000 words, so light novel length, Old Man in the Sea length. They should. I don't know how many I'll be able to come out with in the next year. I'm hoping to come out with like 6, but it's quite a bit of work to, come out with them. I've already written a whole bunch, like 300,000 words worth, so like 6-7 volumes. Basically, each book is going to have a little bit different map because they take place in a different location. So in this book, they're really only in one city, and it's right here in the middle of the map. But I just thought I'd draw the whole map because it's fun. And then the second book, they're out in the ocean, and then the third book, they're in a different part of the main continent, which is, kind of loosely styled on Europe. And once you get into it, it's European fantasy. That's really what I wanted to have it to feel European. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we're going with this one here. So, should be pretty interesting. So each book gets to have a different part of the map, and what I'll probably do is kind of make one giant map for people to have, if they want to, maybe I'll kickstart it or something fun like that, have a giant map that people can buy and put on their walls. I'll make a really huge document that puts this one to just kind of shame. The second lines, by the way, are way easier to draw than the first lines, just so you know. This is always the case, because you have to be less precise with the second line. You draw 3 lines, and so the second one gets to just kind of go roughly around the first one, And there's the first one I missed. There we go. See, that looks really good. Kind of go around this one like this. Let's see. Now, see, we end up with just this effect. So as you're not going to try to go in that cranny, you just kind of keep going here. Creates a good effect. See, right here, we just kind of turn around. We don't need to go in that cranny. In fact, we could draw just a little. That looks good. Just kind of go around this way. Now this one might be interesting because I might need to. Yeah, I'm going to do this. Go like this. Go like this. Oh. But I like the Oblivion music too, because it's just, I don't know, it just has this pleasant emotional effect. It really does sound like this kind of idyllic land that is being invaded by demons. There's also 2 ways to play Oblivion, in terms of just the feeling of the game. So one way to play Oblivion is to just do what they want you to do the normal thing. The other way to play Oblivion is to you never go to that first town there, the town that's destroyed. You just never go there and meet Joffrey. And the Oblivion gates never open up if you do that. So you can just do all the rest of the game as if you're adventuring in a pleasant fantasy land with nothing wrong. And that's kind of one way that you can do it. Again, we're going to have to do this one a little bit different because of how close this one gets to this. So we'll go around this island like that. And then we can draw an inner part just like this. And that's all we have to do. That's going to look okay. And now see, these parts I just kind of do a little dip because we can't get quite in there. Go around the island. Whoops. Let's try that again. We'll just do a little dip there, and a little dip there, and then we'll hit this and we'll go around the island. Just like that. So we go right here. And then we get to go around. It's a little too close. I remember that we're zoomed in. I like the way Jeremy Soule uses clarinet and flute. Clarinet and flute always have a certain effect because flute has no overtones, and clarinet is missing every other overtone. That's part of the unique sound. And clarinet also bounces off the floor. Flute also, most of its sound goes off to the side. So you always get this somewhat reflective sound with clarinet and flute. They're like kind of the reflective memory woodwinds. Their sound naturally evokes a sense of memory and remembrance. Same thing with French horns to a certain extent. French horns are kind of the memory instrument of the brass family because their bell points backwards. So you're always hearing a reflective sound. So something ominous can be French horn. Those big loud horn calls you get in like the old German operas were so effective with French horn. Jeremy Soule uses French horn very well. So the big featured instruments in the Oblivion soundtrack are definitely like French horn, clarinet, and flute. And otherwise, you just kind of get the general sound of an orchestra. You know, like this sound. Kind of sounding ominous. You get kind of a... That's a little too... Kind of an ominous sound. Bad stuff is happening now. Maybe combat. Yeah, I don't know if I want to try to split that hair or not. Probably, yeah, probably not. Probably gonna want to go back around like this. Oh, a little too much. Yeah, the way I drew this is a little awkward. Right, because this is going to be really, like, pretty close here. Like that. Yeah, I can do it. Just start with the hard part. Or, what we'll do here. This will look pretty good. We'll just erase a little bit here. I'm not sure what contour to follow here. Just kind of split the difference. Go up there. And we'll kind of follow this one out like that. Boom. Now because this one's already been drawn around, we just kind of go like this. Out around and back, and then we just draw around that island like that. And so then we have our contours there. I didn't quite like that spacing though, so I'm going to redo it. Again, kind of, you know, pen and ink. If I had done this pen and ink, I just would live with the mistakes. But when you're not doing it pen and ink, you don't want to live with your mistakes. You know, it's like, I want to undo. I want to undo what I have done. You know? You can see how meticulous this style of map making is. It's not for everyone. That's why people use like Campaign Cartographer to do this stuff. Python Blender, thank you for the super chat all night long. I probably won't do it all night long. I'll probably stay up another hour. But I gotta get this done. Your D&D campaign made me want to run a Ravenloft campaign. I love it. I wish I had more time to tabletop game and like people to do it with. It's kind of tough. You know, if I set aside a night, like you can only focus on so many things at one time. And generally it's going to be like two things. So for me, it's family and my professions. Making books and YouTube stuff. For you, maybe it's your hobbies, right? And everything else is kind of lower level. So like gaming, it's just lower level. I'll just play like some Fire Emblem before I go to sleep. And that's pretty much what I get to do now. You know, or if I have an active WoW account, I'll, you know, maybe play some of that. But that's something I kind of realized after I canceled my WoW account again. Was I was just like, you know, it's really hard to focus on everything that everyone says you're supposed to focus on all the time. Especially when you are focusing on a game. You know, I could see why people think games are a waste of time, because at the end of it, like you just have the experience, you just have the enjoyment of it, and not something that is tangible. But I still love to play games. RPGs are definitely like one of my passions. And I love to talk about them, and I love to play them. I just don't get to play them as much as I used to. And one of the things I see with like D&D, you know, I made that recent video on D&D. Man, there's a lot of people who take D&D very seriously and kind of got upset that I said, bro, you can just ignore the rules. They're like, no, there's these tournaments. I'm like, there's D&D tournaments? What world am I living in that there's D&D tournaments? It sounds ridiculous. Or like, no, they're played at these sanctioned game stores. I'm like, sanctioning? What are you talking about? That is not Dungeons and Dragons. That's not how you play an RPG, guys. You shouldn't have to play an RPG worrying about like some sanction from some organization. You know? Kind of reminds me of like Magic the Gathering developed like a tournament scene at some point. Actually, I have like a Magic the Gathering set I'll talk about this week. I don't know, I probably shouldn't give money to Wizards of the Coast, but I kind of feel like I'm just giving it to Hasbro. You guys probably can't see it, so... but anyway, it's a set with 5 really weak decks, and I'm like, this is perfect, because I can just keep this in a box, and if one of my friends comes over and they're like, hey, you remember playing Magic? I'd be like, yeah, let's play some. You just 5 balanced, equally low-powered decks. Low-powered decks are really fun to play. No one has to bring their deck. You just pop out the garbage black deck and you play. And you just go. And it's perfect. Rather than... People take this stuff so seriously. And it's funny how seriously some people take D&D, considering that, like, the game's been dumbed down a little bit, I feel like, you know, compared to AD&D. You know? And 3rd edition was really cool. But I don't see a lot of play on that 3rd edition level anymore. Just kind of interesting. And there's people who got really upset. And they're like, no, it matters because of this tournament play or this like sanctioned game room play or something. I'm like, what are you talking about? There should be no such thing as like sanctioned D&D play. That seems ridiculous to me. It should be about fun. But I'm kind of like an old fogey at this point with this kind of stuff, I think. So, I don't know. Like, I don't know quite what to say. Like, see, this one's kind of tight here as I've drawn these islands, so maybe, oops. Maybe I go like around this island too, and kind of go down like this. Kind of an interesting way to do it, but it kind of works. I'm gonna do it around this island too. Oh. Redo that line. Undo. this. I kind of want it to go to a little waist here. Just like that. There we go. And yeah, we'll probably go again like this. Go around and back down to meet the coast. There we go. Looks pretty good. And if you have to fill in a gap, like right here, you can just kind of have a little circle there, like that. There's a little island, you know. Draw another happy little island. Like that. Perfect. It'll look beautiful. Oh, I love this song. I love this theme. It's wonderful. I like this map. Any thoughts of selling this IP? I have the perfect idea for a crappy trilogy. I'm probably not going to sell this IP unless someone gives me a ton of money for it. Someone's recommending a blue light filter. I have a blue light on me. So don't start thinking it's like super weird. There's a blue light on me. It's not very bright. I could also turn on the red light if you want. You know. But it's not that bright. See, the red light's really bright to me. Blue light is like much softer. The stream's current bitrate is lower than the recommended bitrate. Hopefully you guys can see it. Like, I have all that stuff like on automated, the auto version. Oops. Another happy little island. Go around this one. Let me just kind of jump over that island and go like that. Well, let's do that. Let's do shorter lines, David. Shorter lines. That way you don't have to redo as much. That's smart. There you go. And see, it's kind of fun. Like, you draw the coast, and then you kind of have to do a little puzzle here with the coastlines to get them to look the way you want them to look. So just do a dip there, up here, and again we can just go around this island like this. You know, we'll do this one as its own thing because it's so far out. Actually, let's that. There we go. Interesting way of doing it. A little solution. And see, there's little, once you zoom all the way out, it's going to look more like, you know, the coastline of say, the previous map. So if you zoom all the way in, you know, you can see there's a thick line, and then you have these thin lines. And I may actually go over the thick line again and make it thicker. Make it, you know, maybe, yeah, just a little thicker. We'll see. It seems very meticulous, but I would actually have this level of meticulousness with a pen and ink drawing too. When you do the map, do you one check to see if it makes sense in geographical terms? Correlation between weather and different landscapes. Yeah, I do that. That's kind of built into the story too. Like I think about that before I set the story. Yeah, and I do take the geography on cultures and states. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I don't have work in the morning. I do have to take my daughter in to get shots. So, yeah, DM makes whatever rules they want. Yeah. We had a big party for somebody's birthday today in my family. One of my wife's aunts. We had so many people over. I'm like done with human beings for a little bit, and here I am streaming and talking to people. Just like, let's just try streaming it. Maybe people want to see me draw a map. It's just so... Oh. I'm gonna erase. I'm not gonna redo. I'm gonna erase. I didn't like this part of the line. I'd make less mistakes if it was on paper. Like, I have to remember that. I'm like, oh man, I'm undoing so much. It's like, yeah, it's because you're not doing it on paper where you have better control. Like, the Wacom tablets are fine, but they are imperfect compared to the real thing, for sure. That line sucked. Let's do it again. Better. Once more with feeling. That was a great magic card. I think that was from one of the unglued sets. The once more with feeling card. You guys remember that one? Start the game over again. Reminded me of also a real one that I had called Coalition Victory, which is just you win the game. I actually have it in a 5-color dragon deck I made years ago, a legendary dragon deck with like dual-colored lands and all that kind of fun stuff. You know, so if you had 5 basic lands and you had a creature of every color, you win the game. Now with dragons, it's really easy because the dragons all required 2 colors. So if you had at least 2 colors, and I had some dragons that had like every color. So as long as you had a couple dragons in play, you were pretty much good to go. It was pretty great. I remember that well. Okay. So here's the third line. It's going to go around this island a little bit. This one, we'll just draw another metal line like this around this guy. That was awful. Let's actually, yeah, let's do that again. Be a little bit more careful with my lines. I have a lot of love for some of the music from World of Warcraft too. Some of it was just so good. Which is funny because like when I actually played World of Warcraft a lot, at least I mean when WoW was like a current game, I should say. So when WoW was a current game, I almost always played with the WoW music off. And instead played with the... Let me see how I could do this. How could I do this? This. It doesn't look good. Let's do it like this. This is kind of a... Let's just draw another happy little island right there. And then what we'll do is we'll do this. We'll draw a inner thing here. That'll just take up the rest of that space. There we go. Very nice. Why not do it on paper? Because I don't want the mistakes. I'm going to have to do the letters digital anyway. I mean, I've gone over the process for how I did my original paper map for Water of Awakening, which is fine. You know, it's fine to do it on paper, but I kind of want the ability to do it pretty close to perfect, if you guys can understand that. And so there's lots of little mistakes in that Water of Awakening map. I love it. I'm super proud of it. It's a great little map. There are also lots of mistakes. Lots of little things that really needed to be just very slightly better for this one. So that's the main reason. The digital space lets me just have things a little bit more finely tuned. So the way that you could do this, if you want to do it on paper, you could use the method that I used in Water of Awakening, which is basically you draw it on paper and you pen it, you ink it on paper. Then you scan it into your computer and you use pixel tracing software. Usually I use Inkscape, and that'll create a bitmap of it. Or you can actually create a vector path out of it. And then from there you can do whatever you want with it. Make it really, because you need it to be black and white. No shades of gray. If there's shades of gray, it's going to look really bad when it's printed. So you can actually buy the print of the Needle Ash map on DeviantArt if you wanted to buy a print of it for some reason. I don't figure I have anyone that's like that big a fan that wants a map. But if you want a map, you can get it on DeviantArt. And I actually have a copy of it. I bought it. It looks really good. And it looks good because I made sure everything was this really crisp black. You know, there's no gray. Everything just looks really well done. If I do say so myself. I mean, it just looks professional. See, there's a problem. So we'll just kind of go here, dip there, and we may just do that like that. And then what we can do is just do another little line here. You guys seen the New York Post article about the guy who says he killed Pope John Paul I? Coming out with a book that says he helped assassinate Pope John Paul I along with some cardinals that were cousins of his. That is an interesting. Very, very rarely do I pay attention to anything that's printed, but that one's like, what? You gotta be kidding me. Oh yeah, I forgot I added another island here. Yeah, it's on the wrong layer. I'm just gonna leave it off the map here. Yeah, so here's that clarinet again. Clarinet's a very reflective instrument. And if you guys are familiar with the Star Wars score, because, I mean, who isn't? You'll notice that John Williams uses the French horn for the Force theme the first time you hear it on Tatooine. When, you know, the dual sunsets. And that French horn produces a very reflective sound because it's bouncing off the back wall to be recorded. And so it creates a kind of a feeling that like the past, you know, the past is alive kind of feeling. So it's great. So we have this nice little cello and violin duet going on here. actually split the difference and do 2 little things on this island. It's gonna look fine. That looked bad. Let's do that again. See here. Should all fantasy stories have a map? Would it enhance the story? Not always. I left a map out of Crown of Sight because it all just takes place in one city. So like, am I going to draw the city? I could do that, I guess, but it just didn't seem necessary or appropriate. Any ideas on how to approach Diesel Punk map? Give it a Diesel Punk feel. I don't know. An easy way to do it is on paper with pencil, trace over with pen. That's kind of what I did the first time. This is faster though, believe it or not. I know it seems like super meticulous, but because this is coastline stuff, I'd have to so take my time even more on paper to do all these coastline details. This is like by far the hardest part of the map. The next part we'll do is we'll start doing like interior geography based on the notes of like where the other towns are. And once you're doing interior geography, you know, you're just drawing mountains. So like if I was going to draw a mountain here, it'd look like this, you know. And then you just kind of draw a line there, and there, and then you can take a paint bucket and boom. Oops. Right there. Bam. Now you got a mountain. Music went away. What's going on there? Oh, this is like a symphonic variations one. Interesting. Alright. We went on to some new music. Okay. Yeah, that's how you draw a mountain. It's not hard. Okay. So I was drawing over here. Oops. Drawing this on like such a huge monitor too. Yeah, it's not the best line. Yeah, see, I like this harp too. Harp tends to have a very nostalgic feel to it as well. I think that's why. That's why we have it in Scheherazade featured so prominently. I don't know if you guys are into like Rimsky-Korsakov or anything like that. Scheherazade is a great orchestral piece to study, by the way. One of my favorites. Rimsky-Korsakov was Igor Stravinsky's teacher. Now these islands up here, I'm going to do a couple details for these that are going to be a little bit different. So I'm just going to continue this contour here. Scheherazade has some really cool orchestration to it and some really epic parts. So for this, I'm just going to actually. Yeah, because I can't fit two in there. We're going to go around it like this. Very closely. Like this. Perfect. Then we actually can go around this one twice. And these can kind of meet up a little bit. Again, you have that featured clarinet. So whenever you guys, if you're interested in doing orchestration or you're interested in studying classical music, pay attention to the instruments that are chosen. Orchestration, I've only realized this after leaving, the university, is that orchestration is so important. It's probably just as important as knowing the theory that you're going to use. Yet, composition studies composition studies can include no theory, but like they almost never really get into the nitty-gritty of what kind of instruments you should choose for your piece and what kind of emotions get attached to them. So if you're into like listening to John Williams or someone like that, or we're listening to Jeremy Soule here, pay attention to the instruments that they use. I've noticed, I think I pointed this out with the Thor movie, Thor 3. It was like, rather than having any kind of theoretical connection to the folk music, they just used like a nickel harpa or something, and they're like, that sounds Norwegian. It's nickel harpa. It sounds Scandinavian. It's like, okay, great. But the music doesn't sound Scandinavian, bro. How about you go like listen to a couple like Swedish folk pieces, and then you can make some Viking music, bro. No, I got the deadlines here, and also I didn't get this job by being good at music. I know somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody else, and I went to Cal Arts. Kind of funny. I have a friend who went to Cal Arts, and he actually is a film composer now. And it's kind of funny because I kind of like his scores, but they are not. None of them are the kind of music scores that you guys would probably like. They're very postmodern. They're dissonance scores and creative music scores. They're not. They're not like the high art that people are used to thinking of for this. Ever thought about selling a novel and album together? Maybe a book, album, and RPG all bundled together. I mean, that's a cool idea. It's a lot of work, though. The lines represent the coast. Cyber, anime, alien. So it'll end up looking like... If you're just joining me, I don't know what happened. I must have closed that. When you see it in context, it'll look like the coast. I'm probably going to thicken these lines as well. That's actually not that hard to do. Once you do it one time, it's a little bit easier to go over again. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. An album is a huge amount of work. Probably more work than a book to produce an album, in my opinion, in my experience, having done both. Producing an album is quite a task. And then an RPG, that's a whole nother can of worms. Hey, can I write music that goes with my book? Like, I could, but I don't see how that enhances the product necessarily either, because most people who are buying the book, like, they just want to read a book. They're not that into like a bunch of they're not that into me showing off composition skills. It could be a style of music they don't care about. If I did something that was like this music, some people would probably think it's really cool. Other people would be totally bored by it. If you did metal, most people don't like metal. Not that I wouldn't mind doing like some kind of metal album that was kind of based on my music somehow, or based on my work somehow. Michael Moorcock technically did that. Have you guys ever heard the Blue Oyster Cult song Black Blade? That's about Elric. He wrote the lyrics for it. Kind of fun fact there with Michael Moorcock. He wrote lyrics for Blue Oyster Cult. Pretty cool. Notice also with like the Oblivion music how much reverb he uses on everything. He uses just like so much reverb for that reflected sound. Really, it's to give you an idea, like it kind of makes you feel like you're treading in some kind of slightly disturbed past. You know, like you're treading in the past of this land called Tamriel. Which I really adore this soundtrack, actually. It's probably one of my favorite video game soundtracks. As far as like just general music goes too. As far as how it makes me feel or how it works with the game, I definitely think it's like one of my top 5s. It works so well with the game. I mean, really all of the Elder Scrolls soundtracks work really well with their respective games. Okay. So, there's the island, okay? Now that's the effect that you get when you draw those extra lines. I'm being probably too meticulous because people are watching me live. But this is the effect that you get. So now you can see clearly, boom, there's land, and those ripples let you know that that's water. Okay, that's the whole point here. Too bad he's politically retarded. I wouldn't say that. I'd say he's very reactive. He got really mad about, I think it was The Witcher. He thought The Witcher was like a ripoff of Elric. I think there's some YouTubers that think that. I'm like, I don't know how that's possible. They're such different characters. It's like they both have white hair. It's like, and so that is where the similarities end. You know, they don't act the same, they don't talk the same. Actually, they were both called White Wolf. So I guess there's 2 points there, right? So White Wolf is kind of unique, right? Not really. Technically, Robert E. Howard had a character called the White Wolf first. Not even Michael Moorcock. And Moorcock probably never knew anything about the White Wolf. Because the White Wolf was really an Arabic character. Just wasn't anything similar to Elric at all. One of Robert E. Howard's short pulp stories. I do really like Robert E. Howard as well. I'm just going to do 2 lines on this one. Now some people do really complicated maps that have like, you know, all kinds of shading, and I see these fantasy maps now that they just have no feeling to them. You know, they're too much of a thing. Maybe I'm trying to articulate my thoughts. Yeah, they just don't do it for me. Like I saw the map in the Stormlight Archive books, and I just didn't like it very much. I just thought it was so cheap. And it's probably like an artist really spent a lot of time drawing that, and I'm like calling it cheap. But there was way too much to it, and it didn't really evoke a sense of fantasy for me at all. All right, so there's the coastline of the island of Verland, and I think that looks good for now. Gives you the idea of what you need for something like this. I don't think there's anything else really to add. So then we got to do the coastline on the bottom too. And then I'm going to have, let's save your work. Save your work. Always save your work, guys. Have you ever tried this on an iPad Pro or a Wacom pad thing? I don't have the money for that. Now my father-in-law has an iPad Pro that he probably just doesn't even use. But it's not, you know. I did, so Cyber Anime Alien, a long time ago, I did write music that went with poetry. And so you were supposed to read the poetry silently while you heard the music that went with it. This was like, oh God, I wrote this like, at this point, it was 2019, probably 15 years ago. This is a long time ago. But, you know, it's a creative thing. But to do a whole album and a book and an RPG, I mean, you can make them all go together. Here's the thing, though, right? Like, who are you selling to? So it's kind of a long tail fan thing, right? You're really selling RPGs to long tail kind of fans. And there's nothing wrong with long tail fans, as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, how many fans? You have to have a lot of fans to do long tail stuff. You know, if I'm going to sell an RPG to someone, then it's probably somebody who's really into my work otherwise. I just realized that this background doesn't fill up the page. Fill that with white. Yeah. So we get to draw a little bit more on the edge of the page here. I think I accidentally drew on the background. Okay, that's good. Okay. So now we're going to go in here and we're going to just finish drawing on the side of the page. Let's polish this out. Let's go up to 12 for now. And I could go over this with like another stroke, that's exactly what I do on paper. In order to thicken the line, I just go over it twice. So if I wanted to get this a little thicker, you just kind of go over it twice with the same brush, and then it has that pin look. People were very surprised I did this in Photoshop. Are you listening to a playlist? Could you share it? Oh, I was listening to, I'll just share it. Yeah, absolutely. This, I don't know, I was listening to the Elder Scrolls soundtrack, and this is like some kind of compilation with like some symphonic variations by someone else, El Xin Huang, the Chinese composer. So how do you show scale on this map? Is it based on how close major cities are to the coast? I don't show scale. Is a short answer. I don't have anything that measures scale. I'll show the notes layer, or like, you know, so just like I made some rough notes where some cities are, and, you know, where I kind of want to put some rivers, and I'll just figure out the rivers as I go. And yeah, all the text is going to come last. So this map will actually be completely free of text, and then we're going to layer the text on last. That's the last thing we're going to do. So everything goes on top. Yeah, most people have no idea how much work it takes to build a remotely decent video game. Yeah, programming is a lot of work. Game design's a lot of work. A tabletop RPG, I think, is what people were thinking. Ian says you could save a lot of time by copying the line work for the entire landmass, stretch it, and use some anti-aliasing effect a few times to thin the lines. It wouldn't look right, though. It wouldn't look real. Right? Shortcuts, and I know I'm doing this digitally, which is kind of a shortcut, but like the shortcuts usually don't end up working out because they don't look right. You know, they look a little bit unreal, and that's the problem. So kind of like, you know, virtual amps or something like that. Virtual amplifiers, there's always something about them that's just a little bit off. That's the best way I can describe it. And I used them on the last Zool album pretty extensively, but sometimes they just feel a little off. They don't feel as organic. I had my brother-in-law over here, brought over a guitar that a friend of ours left that he kind of wanted to buy. And so we plugged it into the amp, and I plugged a guitar into. I had the amp not very loud really, so I plugged another guitar, just like hooked it up in Ableton, like with the virtual amp, and it's the same. It sounded the same. It's like the same volume, but as soon as he was playing, it's like you couldn't hear anything coming out of the computer. You couldn't hear any noise coming out of that computer, because tube amps, they just cut through. They just sound louder. Like, even though you hear them separately and you're like, they're the same, not only are they the same volume, they like sound exactly the same. It's like the tube amps just, they really cut through the mix for some reason. Something about the way that they amplify their frequencies is just different, and it's better. A lot of times when you cut corners, it's not to make something better. It's to make it something have less work. So yeah, it could be less work for me to do some sort of weird stretching effect on this. Oh, I didn't. There we go. So yeah, it might be less work to do some sort of weird stretching effect, but it wouldn't look good. It wouldn't look right. So you better to do it the real way. Or semi-real way, because I am doing this digitally, Semi-real. This actually does save a small amount of labor doing it this way, besides being able to make it more perfect. There is a slightly less labor because you're not having to like sketch it with pencil first and then go over it later. You just kind of do it once and you're done. Which I appreciate. I'm not big into redoing things a bunch of times, he said as he erased another line and redid it. He said as he erased the line and redid it. People like the maps in the book, and I can see why. Now you have a little bit of an idea like how much effort I actually put into drawing a map so that it looks good and looks organic and looks right. Looks like something that you would actually want in a fantasy book, something that makes you feel like you are looking at a cartographic work from your fantasy universe. And I think that's kind of what I didn't like about the Stormlight Archives map, is it didn't look like a map that someone would have drawn. It looked like it looked like a modern painting of a land. It didn't look like a real thing. It didn't look like the kind of map that like someone might have drawn as a cartographer, like within his fantasy universe, or like medieval fantasy, right? Now this fantasy is actually not medieval fantasy, but something a little bit different, something closer to like clockpunk. So I think people will find it a little bit interesting. There's a number of different kinds of firearms that exist in this universe, and that's mostly because I wanted that. I think it makes it interesting. Let's see. Let's redo it again. It's in a weird position for my hand. Move this up a little bit so it's a little bit better. I'm gonna do it this way. And we'll do rivers, and we'll do mountains, and then we'll do the text last, and maybe I'll do a video on how to do the text. I think I've already shown how I did the text for these. You can do it in Inkscape. Inkscape's a really good program to do it, actually. But I think I'm going to do this one in Photoshop, like I did the last one. You know, Photoshop's a great program. I feel like everyone wants to, you know, badmouth the software that they use all the time. It's kind of a funny thing I noticed. They're like, Photoshop sucks. I'm like, Photoshop is great. Have you tried using the alternative to Photoshop? Like, the alternative to Photoshop is like GIMP. And I appreciate that GIMP is free, but it's gimped. You know, I could do so much in this program. It's just such a boon for creativity, you know? Do a little happy little island there, you know? When you have the right tools, it really does help. And you should tell that to your significant other next time you want to buy a guitar. It's like, you know, having the right tools, really important if you want to be successful. That's what this YouTuber says. And you know what? He's like put out some books and stuff. I'm trying to think how I actually want to do this. I think what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to do the main line like underneath the island here. And that's how I'm going to do it. Kind of like that. And we'll go over that island. Hope you guys are having a good night. It's a good little Sunday night. Sunday night fun. I need to finish this up in the next day or two. See if I can find time to proofread the book. So we don't ship with too many typos, but that's going to be hard. So I'm kind of running up against the clock here. Alright, this little cove here, I'm just going to do another happy little island there. Alright. Okay, that's our first line. That one's always a little harder. Let's see. A 400 watt tube to converter for guitar still. I feel like I could hand do this better. I'm not drawing with the mouse. I'm drawing with a pen. Yeah, you gotta. Yeah, it's annoying to like go in and do it. I have a pretty good system for going in and like fixing the digital though. Maybe I'll share it for like comic artists because there's ways to do it that like really will significantly lessen the headache. Because I use like pixel tracing software that just gets rid of the. So what happens? The first thing that happens when you digitize something is that you realize that your black ink is not nearly as black as you thought it was. Everything starts to look gray. You're like, oh no, it looks washed out and gray. It looks so good on the page. But there's totally some things you can do that will make that a lot easier on you. So if you use like Inkscape, you can actually pixel trace it, and then you have like a really clean vector, which is really useful. You can do a lot of cool stuff with that clean vector from there. You can ink it digitally, you know, you can color it, you can do all the kind of fun stuff that you want to do. Without having to worry about cleaning up, like, let me clean up this gray here and make this black, you know. Oh, there's a little extra ink here and there. Let me get rid of that. That's the tough part about cleaning it up. It's like, oh, there's some extra lines here. Or, you know, oh, my pencil art lines are showing up too much. You know. Well, in Inkscape, you can actually set your threshold so that it won't ever pick up the grays. It won't pick up the pencil lines at all. Extremely useful. Now I'm going to do the third line there. So, maybe I'll do some content on some little tricks I've picked up along the way for you guys who maybe are graphic artists or comic book artists for getting stuff digitized. Because yeah, digitization can be a big pain in the butt. It can be very unfun. And it just feels like you're doing all the work twice. Like, that's never a fun feeling. It's like, oh, I'm doing all this work twice. So it's great to just start in digital. Like this. It's just a little off. Keep in mind, this is going to be so small that, like, these details aren't even really going to be noticed. But I notice them. So I get annoyed. So I'd redo it because I don't like the little tiny mistakes. It's kind of like digital, you know, digital photography versus analog photography. It's always like a big debate among photographers. They're like, you can't get as much resolution as you can with analog film, and it's like, but digital is so much quicker to edit and make it look better than it originally did. And I'm just erasing everything. It's like there's so many advantages to just working in the digital space the entire time, especially with photography. Just do a little divot there. And here we go. Doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be pretty good. Some of these are like a little tight. I'm not gonna worry too much about it. Except I am. So I'm just gonna, well, let's just erase that. Let's do a little bigger eraser. Let's go 12. Oh, that didn't do anything. Didn't put it in. All right. Whatever. There we go. That looks okay. Why are you on a deadline as a self-publisher? How does that work? Because if I'm not on a deadline, I won't come out with a book. That's just it. Because I set up a pre-order to make sure I come out with the book, and it's not sitting around for 100 years. So, I have a tube amp out of an old organ. Yeah. I actually pulled the tube amp out of an old Hammond organ, and it's pretty good. I still have it in the garage. I was thinking about kind of converting it to do some guitar work. It has like reverb circuitry, like real, you know, reverb tank and that kind of thing in it, which is just great. The other thing too is like this, you know, this is a tiny tablet, so even though I'm way zoomed in, it's like the motions are super small. But if I go any like further in, it's just, it doesn't feel right. So this is like the closest I can get to it being just, you know, like paper. This. And we'll go over this island a little bit like that, and then we'll kind of go like that. Just follow it along like that. Yeah, and then we'll go around, I guess, with that one. Yeah, that'll be fine. A couple other ways to do this too. Go around these islands. I can actually, because I'm working digitally, I can like do those other ways. And actually, I'll show one to you real quick. It's up to about 18. So what I can do here is I'll erase this line. This will actually look pretty good for this one. I might do this on some of the other islands where I feel like there's not enough lines. What you do is you draw one line around the island like this. And then you can just go all the way around that with the second line. And then it'll look pretty good. I might do that for some other islands too. And that's kind of the cool thing about working digitally is like if I can make these decisions later, like after I see the finished product, I can decide to fix something later if I want to, and get more exactly the look I want. Even though it's just like gonna look like a pen and ink thing. There we go. So yeah, there's a little bit different way of doing it, and I'm probably getting tired. So why is this not? I wanted a bigger size, like 18. There we go. That's a little easier. Look at that 6-point line. Oh. Is that clarinet again? Oh, thank you for the super chat box. I have a 70s Rhodes organ that doesn't work. Would there be any cool stuff to rip from it? Like, kind of don't have the heart, but analog repairs. Yeah, so here's what I did with mine. Mine finally broke down so much. Mine was a Hammond. If it has a tube amp in it, that's worth saving because you can. There's a bunch of stuff online for you to know how to convert that. You can convert it to a guitar amp because you'll find that the input for it can just be made into a 1/4 inch. So you could build a cabinet for it and just make it a new amp. And it sounds really good. It usually runs on like a single 6L6, so you can get like a good, usually have about a 25 watt amp in them, which are cool. What I did with mine, so I threw away the keyboard manuals. I kept the pedals because they are switches. But I was gonna wire them up to be like to control a keyboard, but that ended up being way too much work because I would have had to like solder each little connection. It just was gonna be way too much work, so I abandoned that. The cabinet for the organ I just turned into kind of a desk thing. It's a work desk out, so there's 2 little levels. For a while it was my TV stand, so I had my TV on it and I had my like PlayStation underneath. But my wife got tired of that after a while. She didn't like it, so I bought like a new piece of furniture, and now that's out in the garage. It's like a extra little workbench. So there's lots of little stuff you can do with them that's fun. And it was a cool little piece of furniture, like while I had it. So I really do think it's a pretty cool little thing. So I'm gonna do the same thing with this island. Just make it look a little bit better here. Okay. I'm just gonna draw a little close line around here. So yeah, you could try that with your organ. It's kind of cool. Get like a cool little guitar amp out of it, which is kind of fun. And it sounds pretty good. Like it's a real tube amp. It's kind of warm. Kind of sounds like a Fender circuitry. If it has a reverb tank in it and circuitry to drive the reverb tank, that is of course very valuable, because the reverb tanks, if you wanted to buy them separately, are sometimes hundreds of dollars to get them all set up. Your work is important to me, by the way, in terms of actually figuring out how to be productive with my hobbies, wire working and writing. Yeah, I mean, there's so much cool stuff that you can do with that. So yeah, the amp can totally be salvaged, and I have salvaged those amps, and they sound really good. And what you could actually do too, because they're usually mono amps. If you could get two of them, you can wire up like a stereo Class A kind of amp. I've seen a couple people do that's pretty cool. Like for a hi-fi setup, let's say, like to listen to music. I feel like a tube amplifier, if you can get one for listening to music, still improves the sound of the music quite a bit. There's people who don't believe that, but I think it does improve it. I think the most important thing is actually the medium. So like if you have really high quality digital files or just really good vinyl, those are going to sound better. I keep making the same mistakes. Those are going to sound better than cassette or MP3s, especially. MP3s sound awful pretty much all the time once you actually have a good setup. Like MP3s sound fine on your earbuds, like they're fine for listening to at the gym or somewhere else, but they just don't really work well for high fidelity music. You just don't. Yeah, keep doing that same little stroke there. Kind of funny. I wonder why that is. Probably the way my hand is dragging. Alright, we'll fix it. So hopefully that's helpful. Yeah, the speakers are good. The two 12-inch speakers that come with it, they're actually really good speakers. They're old. A lot of them are the old British Celestion speakers. Like the new Celestions, if you buy them, they're usually made in China. They're not even a British-made speaker anymore, which really sucks. But the old Celestion speakers used to just be, they sounded so good. They had such a warm, cool sound to them. Unfortunately, Celestion's gone the way of lots of other companies and has kind of put their stuff out to China. Unfortunate. Very unfortunate. But what you gonna do about it? Then we do have this island, and so we can just kind of leap around this island. Like that. Kind of create the effect that way. play violin and put some sticky pickups on a Chinese. Oh yeah, I have some cool. So I actually have a magnetic pickup that I did like a video on a while back. That's pretty cool. It's you put the magnet in your F hole, and then the pickup sticks on top, and it sticks to your soundboard with the magnet. And you can use it for violin, you can use it for cello or guitar. I use it for guitar, obviously. But it's a really cool. It's really cool pickup. It's called the MSP pickup, and I think it's from Japan. But it's very cool. They sent me one kind of as a gift, and it was very cool of them to do that. And I haven't really used it much live, because if I'm recording, I can just use a microphone and not worry about feedback or anything like that, or like how to get it to sound loud live. But it does work pretty well. So check out that one, MSP. And I hope they're still in business. It's been a couple years, so I haven't kept up with them. Yeah, this is one of the symphonic variations, I think. I also used to use a specialized pickup when I played contrabass. I'm trying to remember who made it. I don't remember who made it. It was a company. I don't remember who made it. Basically, there's a transducer that you put in your bridge that picked up the like normal tone, and then you put one behind your fingerboard that could pick up articulation if you were doing pizzicato stuff. So if you're doing like the rockabilly slap bass kind of stuff, you could like with a little mixer you could crank up that sound so it would click a lot, and it was kind of like a rhythm section thing. Pretty cool. So anyway, all right, let's take a look at this so far. Probably looks okay. I think it looks pretty good. Again, I might do that little, oops. I might do that little thing with this one up here. Just kind of like get an extra line there. Or this one, same thing. But you guys get the idea. I mean, that's what it needs to look like. So, all right. So looks like we finished all of this geography. Next, everything else is easy. This is by far the most labor-intensive part. And just to compare, you know, this map had lots of mountains, which can be labor-intensive, but it didn't have as much coast. So the coast was a lot easier to do. You know, quite a bit easier to do. That's it. It already looks pretty good. Like it already looks like a landmass. Again, I might redo this island. And that's the Virtue Digitals. I can just delete those. You know, I can just erase some lines and redo them. And you're good. Good to go. I have text at the top. I might extend this document, make it a little taller. I could just do it a bunch of different ways. It's all good. Just to show you guys what's up, like these little parts here, these are where rivers are. So like over here, you know, there'll be like a river that does something like this and maybe branches out like that, you know. So we'll draw some rivers. Oops. And that's it. So that's probably going to be it for tonight because I need to go to bed now. Yeah, I'll probably redo those couple islands. Kind of pull it all in. It looks good though. All right, that's probably going to be it for me tonight. Thanks for dropping by and hanging out. So I do appreciate that, and appreciate the super chats, of course. So Vox, yeah, have fun with that amp. You can create all kinds of cool things out of it. All right. If you send a link, I could probably approve it, Saren. So just send a link and I'll approve it real quick while I'm kind of getting out of here. Yeah, see, just this image, by the way, I'm like, oh yeah, man, Anvil. Here's the Mages Guild, or here's the Fires Guild. There's a Mage Guild there. I'm going there. I'm learning some spells. Good times. Alright, guys. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys next time, and I will do more of this map. I don't know. I'll do more of the map tomorrow or something. So, alright. Have a good one. Totally realized I didn't have the mic on. I had already turned the mic off. Yes. $5. I really like the map of the Soul System from the Horus Heresy, a sci-fi setting with wispy fantasy art. Hopefully that was the correct map. It was the one I showed right here. Looks like this. So very cool. All right. I'll see you guys next time.